Hello, and welcome to Have At Us, Reviews for Your Pleasure. I'm Nietzsche.
And I'm Joshua.
And this is episode 6, Life Finds a Way. And today we are reviewing the beloved, wonderful film of Jurassic Park, released in 1993, before both of us were even alive.
I heard a lot of sarcasm in that.
There's no sarcasm.
Oh, good.
I think this is such a great film. I was so floored the whole way through.
I don't believe a word of what you're saying.
I'm hurt. I'm gonna cry. Yeah, no, this film was not that great. I was not impressed. I didn't understand what was so beloved about this film. I think the thing that was good about it was I thought it was gonna look like crap because it's old, but the dinosaur special effects really hold up, really well. I was thoroughly impressed. I think there was only one scene where I was like, that looks kind of bad, and it was like the passing of a dinosaur or something.
Yeah, no, it's a film pretty well known for its special effects. And I know for the T-Rex, they use a lot of animatronics, and along with visual special effects. So it holds up very well. It actually, the dinosaur, in particular the T-Rex, I think, looks way better than some things that come out today, which is really impressive.
I haven't seen a whole lot of things recently enough to compare special effects. But yeah, I thought it was going to be a lot worse, special effects wise, and it was pretty decent.
The one shot that I think doesn't hold up so well is when they first get to the park and you got Alan and Ellie and Ian in the Jeep, and they first see the Bronchiosaurus. When they're up standing next to it, it's very easy to tell that that's like a green screen.
Oh, for sure.
And so that doesn't look super well, but for its time, it looked great. When I was younger, I had no idea. It looked great. Overall, as a film, it holds up very well in the visual department, for sure.
And that's why you like it, because it's so visually appealing, and why I was not understanding what was so good about it.
Well, this is the weird part, is I do think the visuals in the film are good, and a lot of the shots are great. T-Rex is awesome, whatever else. But the thing that actually brings the most memories for me is the sounds of the film, more than anything else. And it's the only film that I could think of where I hear an effect from it, whether that be the computers or the score, whatever. It brings me instantly back. There's a lot of sounds that are just really small and you wouldn't think about, where I just hear it and I know what I'm listening to. And it's very odd for me because I don't really have that with a lot of things. But this film, the sound is amazing. I love it.
I was really disappointed by the sound. But in particular, I know people are like, the theme of Jurassic Park is so good. It's so great. I was so underwhelmed by this theme. I was just like, what is this? People praise this like it's so great, and I don't understand at any point what is anywhere remotely good about it. It's serviceable. It does what it needs to, but it's not memorable. I feel like I already don't think I could hum the tune of the theme anymore, because I was so disinterested in it wasn't good.
I could hum that. I shouldn't say I could. I should say I do hum that theme probably weekly.
Weekly?
Yeah. It's a theme where I'll start humming just when I'm walking around doing whatever. It's a really easy theme for me to just start humming. Pretty frequent. I could not disagree more with how good that theme is. I think it's definitely a top 3 theme for any film.
Top 3?
Yep.
I've already forgotten it a day later, and you're telling me that you hum this weekly. I don't know that I hum very many things weekly. I think the only thing that I hum weekly is the Type Zero opening song, because that is phenomenal and great. I never remember what that's called, ever.
Vermilion Flame or something? Flames of Vermilion?
Irrelevant. It's better than Jurassic Park theme, but most things are better than the Jurassic Park theme in my world. I didn't understand. That really didn't help me. I feel like their sound effects are fine. Their sound effects are decent. They work.
Yeah, I think they're good.
They're not, exceptional, but they're good. They work. They're serviceable. The rest of their music is, okay. It works.
What I think is good is that you can tell what dinosaur you're around based on the sounds they're making. And I think that is actually really good. So when they're with, the Velociraptors, it's very easy to hear the Velociraptor in the scene and not the T-Rex or the Bronchiosaurus. and they shouldn't be the same sounds. And I think some filmmakers would have made just really similar sounds. But this film does a really good job of distinguishing all the creatures from one another visually and from their actions and just the sounds they make. I think that's really good.
I don't know that I was that impressed by it. I feel like maybe I would have noticed if it was done bad, like if they did all sound the same, but I didn't notice otherwise.
Yeah, you can argue that as a good point that you didn't notice, I suppose.
Yeah. I don't know. What else is good about this film? I don't know anything really. I said the only good point that I had about this film already. I blew my load real early here.
I got you. Well, it's quoted a lot, and you said the only quote you knew of was
Jeff Goldblum over there, because he doesn't have a name in show. He is just Jeff Goldblum. Okay, that's his name. When he's over there, like, ranting about how this is a bad idea and the park's not going well, and he's got his, like, life is gonna find a way thing, but he says something to the effect of, your scientists didn't stop to think if they should, they just did it.
Yeah, I think the order's reversed on that, more or less, but that is the idea. Yeah, that's a really famous one. I actually see that used in comments all the time, especially when it comes to, like, science-related fields. Like, you could be on IGN, and they could have some science page about robot advancement, and there's somebody who's probably going to use that quote.
Well, I understand the point of the quote, but I didn't really feel like his reasoning was very justified.
Really? I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, these are creatures that are pretty deadly and scary, could do a lot of damage, and we could do a lot of damage to what we create. I think that it's a pretty fitting quote, really. I like it a lot.
I think it's fine as, like, an antagonistic point to him. But then he rebuttals and he's like, yeah, but our scientists have actually had to do things and, like, figure things out and accomplish things. And he doesn't say anything to that. He's just like, nope, it's wrong. I've decided it's wrong. Like, why does he get to be the arbiter of what's right and wrong? Because he's Jeff Goldblum?
Well, I mean, in the film, he's just a scientist or a doctor. I don't know that he's really a scientist, right? That they've brought to sign off on the island, to endorse the island. So he needs him there, and you can already see that they've established kind of an antagonistic relationship between the two. Because I think it's right after he says that he, like, switches over to Ellie and Alan, like, well, let's get your opinions because they're clearly going to be better. And they're both like, well, maybe not.
I mean, he didn't have many friends. He had the lawyer who was really just looking for money. He was real excited about the money.
I kind of like the lawyer. Like, he's not a great person, but I like how he's like, oh, your investors are really looking out and doing all this stuff. And then as soon as he sees the dinosaurs, he's like, oh yeah, paycheck's coming. Changes tunes immediately. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, he is clearly not a good representation, but he was a lawyer. I was like, you're going to get represented bad. Because lawyers are bad people in media. That's how it works.
Yeah, for sure.
That's like the one scene, I guess, that I knew was quoted.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know any other quotable lines from this.
It's really hard to say what would be most well-known. I think Clever Girl is very often used. It's pretty popular, and I'll see it in just random things. Like, you could be watching an anime, and some person will put that as a comment, even though it's really unrelated. But it's found a way to ingrain itself into people. So that's definitely a notable one. Outside of that one, what would be really famous? I'm trying to think. On the spot, it's a lot harder to think.
Mm-hmm. It's because there's not very many quotable lines in this film. Because it's not that great. It's pretty forgettable. Like, if I didn't know that this was, like, a massively great film to people, I would be floored that people thought this was so good. I just, like, yeah, but people aren't going to remember this in 2 or 3 years. And be like, oh, that was cool for the time, but it's never going to be remembered.
If you saw it when it came out, you would have been like, whatever, no one's going to like this movie.
I don't understand in any capacity what is so impressive about this film.
I don't know. I think there's the appeal that it's dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are popular, although they're not really in vogue anymore, I don't think. But they've always had a strong representation within the zeitgeist of the people. And this film represents them in a pretty positive way. As being scary, as larger than life, as something forgotten, and when it's reintegrated into society, the danger it would represent, and just the idea that if you were walking down the road and you saw like a velociraptor, even though this is not what a velociraptor would be like, I think the closest thing to what's displayed in this film would be like a Utah raptor, but that's besides the point. It'd be a pretty terrifying creature to run across, and it would probably kill you. Like, even if you had like a gun, you were well prepared, there's a good chance this thing takes you out. And I think there's something scary about that and intriguing about that. And I think if the special effects, the visuals of the film were any worse, it wouldn't be as good. But because they put so much care, probably a lot of time, into those scenes with the dinosaurs, I think it carries very well. I don't know that there's a movie that's done it quite like that before. Like, King Kong has some pretty large creatures in its filmography, and so you kind of have had large creatures before, but to see something like a T-Rex that's come to life so well, I think it's just it being the first time leaves a strong impression.
I'm left with no strong impression at all, except that people have boring tastes. People choose boring movies to be movies that get carried on and are great. That's what I'm left with here.
Now, do you think if you had watched the film when you were 6 or 7, do you think that impression would have changed?
Maybe, but I was never big into dinosaurs as a kid. Like, I did not think dinosaurs were that interesting. I was like, okay, they're dead, they're bones, we dig them up. Woo! That sounds like a really boring job and hard work. I don't know, I've never understood the appeal of dinosaurs. They're dead. I don't see them. I feel like part of it is that, like, it's like this fantastical representation, I feel like, that we have.
Yeah.
So we just have bones, and we have, like, 3D imaged all this stuff, and we're like, this is what they had to look like. Whoa. And I'm like, what if they didn't look like that? Like, bone structure doesn't tell me everything. It tells me a lot, but it doesn't tell me everything.
That's true. I think one of the main differences between us, though, is as a kid, I wanted to be a paleontologist. That was like the first job of choice as a kid. Like, you know, when you're in 2nd grade, and they're like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? My answer was paleontologist. And I don't know if it was because of this film. I can't think far back. I saw this film when I was pretty young. But it certainly probably had a large influence. But I thought paleontology was super cool, digging up the bones. And I think that there is a fantastical nature to these creatures that we know were around at some point. And so long ago, right? There's so much distance between us and the dinosaurs that it's just kind of... It's crazy to think about that gap of time and their society and, you know, what it would have been like, and then how it was just completely wiped out. So a lot of things about it that are pretty interesting, I think. Although, one thing people don't really realize is how long of a time is between some of these periods. Like the Jurassic period and the Cretaceous period and whatnot. Like, some of those periods are further apart from each other than we are to the last period that had what we recognize as dinosaurs in it, which is pretty crazy to think about.
I know these facts, and they're not that interesting. The concept of, like, some crazy thing happened and killed all the dinosaurs is interesting. I don't really think it's interesting enough to dwell on, though. There was a catastrophic event. Things died seemingly pretty instantaneously and were buried pretty instantaneously. Because if you didn't do it that way, your fossils don't form as cleanly and neatly as they did. And so, like, from that perspective, it's more interesting. But that's more interesting from, like, a worldview discussion of, like, how did this actually happen?
The planet's history.
Yeah, no, worldview. I use the right word here.
Oh, okay.
Because in, like, a Christian perspective, you get weird things like the dinosaur bones are planted. And I think that's a little crazy. But that's fine if you're out there and you believe that. I know people who believe that, and we've had discussions about it, and I don't get it, and that's fine. But, like, then you get, like, us in the Christian world, like, maybe it was a flood deal, and the flood actually killed all the dinosaurs, and I could take or leave that. It doesn't bother me. Or, like, God just decided they were done, right? Or then you get, like, the meteor deal. Like, did a meteor actually strike that? And there's kind of interesting evidence on that front. And I know other people believe that, like, it was a change in, like, the oxygenation of the air, and that led to mass collapse and bad things.
If it was an event orchestrated by God, would there have been a purpose to their existence in the first place?
Probably. That would be the assumption.
I wonder what people theorize their purpose was. Because again, it's so far back that it's Although I suppose some people believe it's not that far back, right?
Yeah, people, if you're believing that they were planted, then you're believing that you're generally going to believe that they are in the young Earth theory, so the Earth is only like 6,000 years old or something. So from a worldview perspective, dinosaurs bring a lot of interesting elements into the worldview discussion.
Okay.
Right. The planet's history is the planet's history. I'm not that interested in the planet's history as a whole. It's not overly fascinating.
Yeah, it's kind of boring, but I think it's just because planet wasn't doing much for a very, very long time. And then amazingly some life formed and leads to all kinds of places. There's a lot of cases of life being almost completely exterminated. Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of repeats itself like all history seems to do.
Yeah, and that's where we're headed. To another disaster.
Well, I think some
because
people believe
you drive a car.
Yeah.
Notice I bike. I'm a good person.
Yeah.
Helping the planet out. Because that's definitely why I bike. It's not for the cheapness of it. It's definitely for the environment. And you're a bad person. Again, I'm a righteous person. I bring this back from last week about how I am so righteous.
You are a righteous man.
Yeah, no faults in my opinions.
True. All right, well, let's dig into the characters a little bit. We got Alan Grant. He's more or less the main character of the movie, if you were to assign a person as the main character.
I don't know that I'd assign anybody a main character, but good old Dr. Grant is, he's there. I feel like they really maybe not typecast, but they really told you what they were gonna do with everything really early. And then they did it. And it was not very exciting, like the conversation about kids. Like, from that moment, I was like, there's gonna be kids in this movie. And he's going to have to deal with them at some point. Yep. I didn't necessarily think he was going to have to go on an adventure with these kids and save their lives, but he did. And then he was like, their buddy over there. I was like, oh, not very cute. Not very interesting. But he's a fine character. Like, he serves his purpose and he does his thing, which is probably what my sentiment will be on most of these characters.
Fair enough. He's a bit curmudgeon-y at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And even at the end, I think he's a bit curmudgeon-y. I think that's ingrained inside of him. And I think that's fine. He seems a bit older and not really interested in the modern technologies of the world, right? He says multiple times, like, what did I do? And I don't do well with technology. And so you can tell he really has a fascination with, like, dinosaurs, obviously. It's almost like he has a childlike appreciation for them, even though he is older. And I think it's cool to see something that can bring such awe to a man who is, that curmudgeon-y guy. But he sees that first dinosaur and he's just blown away. He has no words for it. When Ellie's trying to say something, he doesn't say, hey, look over here. He takes his hand, places it on her head, and turns her head to look at it as if he has no words that he can say. And it's like, you just have to see this. And that wonder, I think, is really cool. And you can tell he's a pretty smart guy. And even though he sees, like, this miraculous event, he can still be like, well, there's a lot here to be answered, a lot of questions that need to be asked. And I like how he uses his knowledge, which is probably almost all false to modern dinosaur knowledge. That's fine. He uses that knowledge that he does have in the rest of the film, like with the T-Rex.
The T-Rex. I was so not interested in them. Like, if we just stand still.
It is a very weird,
like, I don't understand
flaw.
I don't understand this movement thing. Like, it only sees movement? But then why does it have, like, a complex-looking eye that would have, seemingly have all the things we have and be able to see things, like cones and rods and, nerve ending that transforms the brain and, like, why would it look like a normal-looking eye?
Yeah, probably wouldn't.
Like, and how would we know? How would we know that? We can't know that from bone structure? Like, come on. That whole deal really, it helps break the immersion.
Yeah.
A lot.
I do think that is a problem. Like, it makes really no sense. You absolutely wouldn't know something like that from the bones. It's not like you had one of those eyes and one of those skulls. But as a device, I like how he uses his knowledge to Finn when he does meet these creatures in real life. He knows, he's prepared on some level. And I think that's cool for the movie. I do agree that the liberties they take with the dinosaurs is very funny, because they have like the Dilophosaurus that are like spitting venom and whatnot. We have absolutely no way to know that they would spit venom. That's definitely a made up factor for the film, but again, that's fine. The raptors, they wouldn't look like that. That's fine. The Brachiosauruses, I
don't remember which way it goes.
Yeah, I always forget.
It's Littlefoot.
The Littlefoots, yeah.
Okay.
What we do know from their bone structure in their mouth is that they wouldn't be able to chew side to side, only up and down.
Mm-hmm.
And in the film, they have them chewing in a kind of like a horizontal round motion, and that would structurally not be possible with him. So that's kind of a problem. I mean, there's a lot of inaccuracies, but again, it's a film. I'm not hung up on it. It's fine.
Now, when you're not that interested in it to start with, when you start to see like, oh, that makes zero sense, it breaks the immersion. It breaks your enjoyment of this film.
Okay.
Also, the other inconsistency that comes is with good old Neely over there, right? Is that his name? The kid who caused all the problems, fat kid. Nedry, whatever. Nedry, Neely, those are pretty close, okay? And a forgettable film. Someone who wasn't there very often. Nedry, yeah.
Dennis Nedry.
Yeah, good old Nedry is complaining about his pay and weird problems, and I'm like, this guy just offered to fund someone's dig for 3 years. Like, he's got money, and I get that they're, like, related somehow. Him and good old John, or whatever, off the one comment. Or unless that comment was supposed to be sarcastic. I wasn't really positive on how that was supposed to be taken.
The yes dad?
Yeah.
That's sarcastic.
Is it, though?
Yeah.
I wasn't really positive.
Yeah, that's definitely sarcastic.
The delivery on that was not selling it to me.
Oh, okay. Well, I disagree, but that's fine.
This actor's voice is not great. It's like always pretty consistent, and so it's really hard to understand when he's trying to do anything that's not kind of be the up in arms, like, whoa. That's what he sounds like, by the way.
Wow.
He sounds exactly like that.
Okay.
My mimicking imitations of famous actors is spot on.
It's pretty good.
But yeah, like, how is this guy not getting paid enough? Please explain.
I am wondering how much he is or is not getting paid, because they're offering him a total of $1.5 million to get the samples of the species, or what would that be, like the genetic codes, off the island to the ship to like a competing company. And $1.5 million's a lot, but I do feel like a man who's kind of in charge of like all the coding and networking of your park's infrastructure would be getting paid pretty well on an island that has dinosaurs on it. Like, I don't know. I'm not really sure. I wonder if the book probably goes into more detail on some of that. I really feel like I need to read this book.
You own this book.
I do own the book.
I don't own this book.
I do own the book. I should really read it one of these days. But Dennis Nedry, what I like about him is he's got a body language to him. He's a big guy. But that's not what I'm talking about. There's a way that he kind of moves his hand, and it's like when you first see him and they got the Barbasol can, and he sprays the shaving cream into his hand, and then he just puts it on the pie slice behind him. I think that's a hilarious scene. And as a kid, I didn't understand that was shaving cream. I didn't know what Barbasol was. I thought it was whipping cream because I was a kid. And he was just doing that and like, oh, you're a good guy. As I've gotten older, I realized, oh, that's not what's happening. So that's kind of a funny historical piece for the film for me. But I like how he's like squeezing the like stress relief thing. And he's an intelligent guy, clearly in the realm of computers, but he's clearly incompetent in a lot of other aspects of his life. And I think he makes for a pretty good villain, I suppose you would call him. I don't know, that's the
He's
great
just
term.
a catalyst.
Yeah. That's probably a better word. He really is the catalyst for the film overall. He's the one that shuts down the systems and allows the dinosaurs to escape. Causes a lot of problems. If they probably would know it was him. Wonder if they ever find his body.
I mean, I assume he got eaten.
Yeah.
One. The other deal is that there's no real closure on a lot of things. The stupid can gets buried with mud.
Yeah, I want to say they bring that up in a different film.
Okay, well that's fair then. I'm not impressed enough with this film to watch more of these films.
Sure, but I don't remember which one it would be, but I want to say it is. But anyway, yeah, Dennis Nedry, I think he's a pretty competent character. I like him as a character, but not as a person. Different things. But he's kind of accompanied by Mr. Samuel L. Jackson as Arnold is his name?
Yeah, I think it's Arnold.
Ray Arnold.
And that was fine, whatever. He was kind of just a throwaway character. He was there, he existed. He didn't do anything really. He dies.
He does die.
He gets sent off and he dies.
What a loser. He couldn't hang on to his butt.
Apparently not. I kind of forgot that was a line.
That's one of those other lines that's pretty famous. And I think that was an improvised line. Don't quote me on that. I want to say it is.
Look, you like to follow things that don't quote you, but like it's published for the world. They will find out that you said this. Someone's gonna make a clip of all the things you said don't quote me on.
Good.
And it's gonna be just like Joshua said this. It's his gospel.
My gospel.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Samuel L. Jackson over there is fine, recognizable. I saw this guy and I was like, yep. I know you were in this film.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's a big name to just kind of have as a bit part. I like him on screen. There's one scene where he's kind of talking very fast, like explaining all the information that you would need to know as the viewer and the characters would need to know as their characters. And he, like with the lysine, I think it is, with the lysine protocol. And his delivery on that, I think, is really good. Like, he's very clear in what he's saying and succinct, and I think that's actually a pretty cool scene. Or piece of dialogue, I suppose.
It's fine. I didn't fully understand the lysine thing. Like, I assume that really just means everything will die off now that they've abandoned the island. But wouldn't that, like, mean that these other movies don't exist? I'm a little confused as to how all that works when the retrospective knowing there are other films, but I don't know how the other films work. I know I've seen the beginning of whichever one that would be where the kid is like paragliding or whatever.
3.
Wow, I'm pretty sure it's not even a paraglider.
Yeah, but I don't know what all these things are, but I know what you're talking about. It's 3.
Yeah, and he flies off and then he ends up over there and...
Yeah, that's like the most disliked of the Jurassic films.
That's the only... I've seen him, get there and then, like... That's it. That's the only thing I've seen. Just, like, the very beginning. That's my only experience with Jurassic Park before this.
And that sure is a lot.
And now we've added a whole film of not much good, besides the animation. But, there are more characters that aren't very great. This Mr. Grant's wife over here is...
They're not married.
Whatever. His hustle girl...
Hustle girl.
Yeah, I decided... Oh, I was going to say his side hustle. But then I was like, that's wrong. His hustle girl. So it's his hustle girl.
I don't know if I've ever heard that.
Yeah, it's a good term.
I've heard of side hustle. I don't know if I've heard of hustle girl, though.
It's a new term. I've made it up. Hustle girl.
Okay. That's a good one.
She's a hustle girl for Dr. Grant over there. And she's sometimes funny. Like, she's alright. The one scene where she follows up on Jeff Goldblum's little weird, this happened and then this happened and man created dinosaurs, blah, 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 whateverness. And then she's like, and women will inherit the earth. And I was like, that's pretty funny. Like, that's a really clever line. It really follows, like, how, like, a biblical thing would work there, and I was like, that's good. That's really good.
It is a pretty funny
It's well thought out. It's well written.
I like Ellie. She's a brave person. She's smart. She's knowledgeable. I felt like they could have done more with her in the film. But, I mean, she helped. I mean, she's actually a pretty big part of why they make it off the island at all, with the power going out and whatever. She gets all that back on and risks her life to do so. 2 other people died in the act of doing so. So, I mean... Good on her. She really pulls out. And I think that's cool. I mean, she's not super interesting. I think her dynamic with Alan is pretty good. Like, I think they have a pretty believable relationship. So I think that works pretty well. I don't know why in the 3rd film, they are not together. She's like married to some other kid. And
what?
Yeah, it's really weird. It doesn't really make any sense, but yeah.
After like the whole crap about kids and all that?
Yeah, it's really weird. I don't understand. I thought that was really confusing when I first saw Jurassic Park 3. It's actually one of the biggest disappointments of that film. Because I like the relationship and think it works really well, but yeah. Falls off somewhere, I guess.
But yeah, she's boring. Like, she's not interesting, except for in the one scene. She's, like, got a weird flirtatious relationship with Jeff Goldblum, but then she's, like, seemingly with good old Mr. Grant. But apparently she's not. And now that you tell me that in 3, that's not a real thing.
Well, they are together in this film, but yeah, I don't know why they separate.
This seems like a franchise that's not good.
The continuity between them is... not perfect.
But yeah, I guess Jeff Goldblum. We mentioned this guy a lot. What's his actual name?
Ian Malcolm.
Ian Malcolm. Yeah, he's weird. Like, he's weird in, like, a eccentric, kind of interesting fashion at first. And then he just seems kind of like he's after Hustle Girl.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, okay, buddy, I don't know what's up with you. You're kind of not great, and then you don't deliver on being, like, really eccentric and maybe interesting.
I think Ian Malcolm is actually an extremely popular character. His there's a lot of pictures of where he's after he's hurt and they're back in like the bunker, and he's laying there with his shirt kind of or his chest all exposed and whatnot, and he's kind of on his side. Well, that's a really, really famous picture of him. Like, people paint that in all kinds of ways. It's extremely popular of his career as an actor. It's a big one.
I would never have guessed that.
Oh, yeah.
I did not even notice that his shirt was partially open and like...
Oh, it's like all the way open.
Whatever. I guess he's a sexy man. Yeah. That's why he's after Hustle Girl.
Yeah, he's something else. But I like Ian Malcolm. I actually like him a lot more in the second film, where he's the main protagonist in The Lost World. And a lot of people don't think The Lost World is that great, but they're all wrong. Lost World is equally as good as the first one. In some ways it's better. Not in all ways. Some ways it's worse. But there's certainly scenes in the second film that are better. Second film's awesome. Everybody who thinks differently is wrong. But back to the first film. Ian Malcolm is a good character.
Anyway, yeah, so Jeff Goldblum is the sexiest man alive. That's what I'm hearing right now. He's old now.
Yeah,
he's not necessarily young in that film, but that was a while ago.
Almost 30 years.
He's an old man now.
Yeah, he's pretty old.
But he's probably still super sexy. He'd be, what, a silver fox?
That is a term.
Is he married?
I have no idea.
He could be married to a hustle girl. I'm going to keep bringing this term back. I just need you to know.
Okay.
It's a funny term to me. I'm liking it.
I don't know what's so funny about it.
You laugh, so I don't know what to tell you right now.
I laugh at your insistence.
Oh, okay.
That's the term.
That's fine. But yeah, then you got, what? John Hammock or whatever?
John Hammond.
Yeah, I don't remember. It starts with an H.
Hammond.
I'm not even that far off.
Sure.
It's basically the same name. Hammock.
Yeah.
Hammond. But yeah, he's kind of an interesting entrepreneurial guy. And I like that he has a lot of character built into him. Like, you see a struggle, and like he really wanted to provide something really cool and great. And he was just a visionary working his way to the end. And he was trying to save it for a while. He's kind of like, well, the real problem is that we relied too much on Needley's, automatronic stuff.
Needley?
Yeah, I've forgotten his name already. People knew who I was talking about, okay? I moved on.
Okay.
I said the first thing that sounded right.
Okay.
But he tries to, blame it on that, and then be like, oh, it's still salvageable, we'll do it right next time. And you see a nice progression with him.
And he's got a great line.
Oh, what line is that?
Spare no expense.
I mean, he didn't spare any expense with the melting ice cream. That's where I remember that line being, actually.
That's it?
That's it. That's the only spot that I remember that line.
He says that at least 5 times.
Maybe if it was more memorable. Maybe if this film was better.
That's what I like about the line, is because he says it so many times, and the last time he says it there, it's kind of like a mocking or a self-mocking tone. And I'm like, spare no expense. I think that's actually the payoff of that line.
I don't remember that being said anywhere else off the top of my head. Not in the slightest.
Okay.
Yeah, he's fine. I don't know. You got any other great things to say about good old Mr. Hammock?
Yeah, Mr. Hammock. He is a character that I didn't understand as a kid. I just thought he was some old guy who had a lot of money. He built dinosaurs. And that's really about the limit of my understanding. I saw him more as a positive light. But as I've grown older, I see him as more of a negative. Like, he's really the cause of a lot of problems. And it seems like he didn't take enough precautions. And you see that in the way that a lot of these things aren't functioning. The doors don't have locks on them when they probably should. And he really is more of a visionary, as you said. But he didn't really do a good job of the infrastructure of the island. And he's a go-getter, and he's probably very rich. In fact, you see his mansion in the second film, and it's like a big old Victorian-style mansion. It's pretty cool. But he, as a character, I see more as a negative light these days than I did originally, which is interesting. But I do think you're right in that he has a good character progression, and that he does seem to realize that he made some pretty big mistakes. And I'm curious what, legally, how much trouble would this man be in? A lot of people just died.
Just a few people. Not that many people who actually died.
I mean,
most people have left the island, right? We do a good job of reminding the boat thing.
Yeah,
leaving.
We assume that most people made it off. Maybe they didn't. Who knows? I mean, I would assume that a lot of them did make it off. But, I mean, you still have several people who died, and pretty major people within the company, I would assume. Or at least the island's part of the company. So, certainly some problems.
I mean, they're in a lot of legal trouble, right? Someone died on site, there's an investigation, and now there's more problems, and life is not good.
Yeah.
He probably gets hit with criminal negligence on some pretty high charges. But I guess you need evidence to prove that.
True.
They disappeared into the jungle and we couldn't find them.
Dinosaurs. Dinosaurs went extinct a long time ago, buddy. What are you talking about? There's no dinosaurs.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could get away with it if you got people to agree and pay off on that. And
That's what a righteous man would do, right?
well, I am a righteous man, and I would not do that.
Oh,
That's how I'll answer that question.
Okay. No, but him and the lawyer are both characters that I really only understand as an adult. When I was 5 or 6 watching this film, I didn't really understand a lot of things about the movie. I just thought, oh, we're going to get to some dinosaurs in 45 minutes. So it does take a while before you really get to, like, the dinosaurs.
I mean, showing them,
Yeah.
at least, because you get the scene early with the opening,
Yeah.
which was not good.
Yeah, I don't like that opening, actually.
I was thoroughly disappointed that was there. It makes sense later when they talk about them.
Oh, the raptors, yeah.
Yeah, and like it's kind of a good showcase of like how clever they are. But I'm like, I don't understand exactly what went wrong. Like this is a massive steel thing that I don't really believe a forklift lifts and takes over there like it would. But I don't know. Forklifts are very easy to tip when you have something that big on it.
Yeah, they are.
And so I was like, whatever. I'm already not believing things. Great job. Your film is a terrible open, and that didn't help it.
I think it's not a good opening. I often forget that that's the opening, and I'm like, oh yeah, we gotta sit through this stupid minute and a half, 2 minutes. But it's fine. They do tie it in later, at least.
I mean, they did something with it. There was clearly a direction with it, but there's a direction with a lot of this stuff. So
Yeah, I actually think one thing that the film does well is that there's a lot of dialogue in the beginning of the film that pays off later on, and I think that's actually pretty cool.
they spared no expense.
I mean, I have to imagine that this island costs a lot of money.
He owns the island, but he's leasing it. I would assume, wouldn't that be from the U.S. government, right?
Well, it's off of Costa Rica.
So I guess it'd be from the Costa Rican government? Whatever, how much money can they really need from this guy? Costa Rica's a poor country.
I don't know what their economy's like.
Also, the beginning where there's like Spanish being spoken, and there's just white men everywhere.
Some of those people are clearly...
In the very beginning?
Yeah. In that first scene, yeah.
Where? There's like the whole like panning of the group of people is just a bunch of white men, and then there's Spanish being spoken, and I'm like, okay.
I don't know, maybe it's the lighting, but I mean, none of them are like super dark skinned, but they're not like straight white.
Most of them were in the very beginning.
I don't think so.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
There's a few that aren't, but like they're speaking Spanish way before that.
Yeah, they are.
Like I don't see anybody who reasonably I look at and think you speak Spanish, and then they're just like gibberish in Spanish over there. I don't know why you wouldn't have them all speak one language. I feel like communication on how things should go is really important. One thing goes wrong, and then there's a bunch of raptors loose and they killed you all.
That's fine.
How sad. But then, Hunter Kid's in that scene. Kenya Hunter. Whatever nonsense.
Robert Mulden.
Yeah, whatever. He doesn't need a name. He's useless. He's stupid. He's not funny. He gets himself killed.
He does get himself killed.
He has a line that I guess is really good.
You're making a great face, just to let you know.
Am I?
Oh, yeah.
But describe this face.
Shell-shocked.
Shell-shocked.
Yeah.
I'm not shell-shocked by this guy. I'm just underwhelmed.
Oh.
He's just boring.
He's not an amazing character. He serves a function as like a game warden, which would probably be a necessary role in a park like that. But I agree that he's not particularly fascinating. He helps out a little bit, then he dies like a chump. The scene that I don't really understand is when he's looking at the raptor right before he dies, and he's like undoing the latch of the on the shotgun. Wouldn't you have already done that?
I agree he should have had the shoulder rest out already, but maybe it's more effective to run, like if it's not out there, it's not as bulky and annoying, and so he's trying to be prepared for all situations, because he could fire the gun without the shoulder rest. Easy.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of kickback. Not going to be good. But if it saves his life and he's thrown into a tree, like, whatever.
Yeah, that's one thing I thought it was really cool as a kid, though, the way he did that. Like, I always thought that was, like, super cool. I would take, like, big Lego blocks and try to do that, and it never worked. But that was my idea in my head, was I would do that.
Wow. I don't think I've had anything in my childhood that I tried to replicate like that.
Now, this film is pretty important to me, and I mimicked a lot of it, and I still think of a lot of things from it, so...
I mean, you still hum it every week, so
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you there. But yeah, I guess that just leaves the kids. Is that the only other characters?
Pretty much. Now, the kids, I definitely want to hear what you think about these kids.
They're fine as child actors. The whole deal with them, like, whatever. There's kids. I don't understand how this light turned on and she couldn't turn it back off. And like, but that whole scene, my favorite part of that scene, we're going to sidetrack, is that they, the adult, just sit there for so long before they're like, oh, we should do something about this. And I could understand, like, they're really terrified, maybe, but they don't look really terrified. They just kind of look like, okay, we're the adults back here in this car. We're safe. It's fine. It's fine that there's some children about to get eaten. It's okay. They're just children. They're pretty useless. The one kid was really annoying. I'm definitely letting Tim die. That's what I'm doing. That's what went through Grant's head right there. I'm telling you. And then his conscience showed up and he was like, buddy, you're going to let that child die? And he was like, wow, I was thinking about it. But then he didn't do it. He figured himself out. And he saved those kids. And then he, became their buddy, helped them out.
Well, that is a interpretation. I'm not sure that we see their faces when the T-Rex first kind of leaves the cage, and they're like, oh shit. Do we see them? Well, I guess he does say, turn the lights off when she turns the light on, right?
Yeah.
And it seems to me like they were trying to be still. My interpretation would be that they are just, what do you do in that kind of case? You just instantly know, oh, I gotta go save them. I'm gonna go fight that thing? Nope.
I go take the kids, and I jump off the edge.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm
we
sure.
all die swift deaths.
Yeah. I'm not sure anybody has any good ideas of what to do in a moment like that. So I think it's fine.
Nah, I feel like people care so much about children. Like, I knew these children wouldn't die in this film. That also doesn't help. Like, we don't kill children very often in media.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, look, you're in a perilous situation in a tree. You're not going to die. I'm not worried.
Yeah.
Like, if it was another person, I would be like, oh, another adult. Maybe you die. Probably not, but maybe.
That's very true. That's the worst part to me is, child acting can be something. But outside of that is that children really do very rarely die. Maybe in horror movies it's more common. But I don't know. I don't watch that genre. But in general, they're going to make it to the end. And it does kind of lessen any of the dangers around them. But besides that, from my understanding, a lot of people do not like the kids. They just find them annoying and aggravating parts of the film. And basically every Jurassic film has a kid in it. Like, you gotta have a kid. Although I do think the newest one doesn't, if I'm remembering correctly.
That's because that's Chris Pratt in it.
It does,
and
yeah.
he is like a child in everything he plays.
He is not in those films, actually. But I actually think their their acting is pretty decent. It's not amazing, but I think it's pretty decent. And I think it's cool how, like, Tim is like this dinosaur nerd kind of thing. And he's over here questioning Grant, like, but your book was only this big. It wasn't as big as this guy's. Clearly, you don't know as much. I kind of like that. I think it's pretty funny. And Lex is, this computer nerd, not really interested in the outside world. This probably doesn't encourage her to explore the outside world very much. After this event, she's probably like, you know what? I was right, the computer. That's where I belong. But I think they do a pretty good job in the film. It gives an interaction with Alan that's pretty good. And he saves their lives and kind of mentors them through the situation and gets them through. Not perfectly. They all look a little disheveled at the end. Tim almost dies several times.
Tim is dead. Okay, Tim is a zombie. It is 10,000 volts. I need you to understand.
Yeah, that's quite a bit.
He would die instantaneously.
Yeah.
There is no way he lives through that.
Yeah, it is a little silly. Tim's a trooper, though. He survives a lot. Good for him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he likes dinosaurs after this.
He loves dinosaurs still.
Maybe.
Not trees, though.
Not trees. Fuck those trees. I don't know. I like the kids. I think they serve as a pretty decent point in the film. I don't know that they're as necessary of a feature in later films, but in this film, I think they work. Not that these are the same kids in the other films, obviously.
I don't think their inclusion is bad. I feel like their inclusion really sells the point of how safe and confident in the safety that John Hammock is over there.
Like, oh yeah, it's fine, send the kids, no problem.
His own grandchildren, right? He feels pretty safe to have them there, and that's good. It really serves as the turning point for him to understand how this is a problem. Their plot device use is good.
I think that's about everybody worth talking about. Really not much else.
There's nobody else.
How sad.
Is that sad?
Actually, I think it's a pretty decent amount of people or characters for the film.
I guess. I mean, you knew you were we're gonna have to kill 2 or 3 of them. So you need to have some disposable people.
Oh, you know what? Dr. Wu.
Who's Dr. Wu?
So when they're at the raptor eggs and they're talking to the guy who's explaining how there's only females and whatnot.
Is he that relevant to talk about?
So he's important because he is actually important to later films and continues on through the films as a reoccurring character who's kind of problematic in the end. And I'm pretty sure it's the same actor. So I think it's pretty cool that they keep that thread going through all these films. But I guess that's it. I think that's the only other character.
I mean, he's a pretty typecast Asian doctor.
Yeah.
Like, yep.
Dr. Wu. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't remember his name. I didn't think he was relevant. I mean, I identify with him as an Asian.
Yeah.
I gotta represent my homie over here becoming a doctor.
Good for him.
Like every good Asian person should. That's why I am becoming a doctor.
And what? Righteousness?
Yeah, Dr. Righteousness. That sounds really stupid, but it's kind of funny all the same.
I was gonna call you Vothroy.
Vothroy,
yeah.
Yeah, get it right. You spend more time on this game than I do.
True.
I don't know, is there anything else that's overly important in this film? Anything else that's actually cool? Like, I can find more negative things to say about this film, but...
I was curious if you were young,
Mm-hmm.
would you have found this film scary at all?
Maybe. Like, I feel like it depends on how young. Like, I feel like if I was young enough, I probably would have been a little scared. But I didn't really watch a lot of things like this when I was a kid to understand, like, oh, I was scared of this as a kid, so I'd probably be scared of this Jurassic Park scene or something.
Like, I feel like it is intended to have horror aspects in it with, like, Samuel L. Jackson Arnold. When, like, his arm comes falling out, and it's like, oh, okay, well, there's a dismembered arm, which I don't really understand how that random arm's there. But besides the point, I feel like there's supposed to be aspects that are scary, but I don't remember being scared of this film when I was younger. Maybe I was and I don't remember that, but I don't remember it. And I am pretty sensitive to horror. It's not a genre I like, but I've never really felt scared of it.
I don't think it's supposed to be horror scary. It's supposed to create a situation that is terrifying for the people in the situation. You are engaged because they are scared. You are not engaged because you are scared, which is a horror film, right?
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
In the horror film, you are engaged because you are terrified of whatever environment or thing, some weird child thing crawling up from a well or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, I only bring it up because I know I've heard people say that they thought it was scary when they were younger, and I'm like, really? I didn't really think so.
I could see it being scary as a child.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think some of the scenes have good tension with it, with the T-Rex and, like, in the kitchen with the Velociraptors. I think those are tense scenes. I don't feel as tense anymore, but I've seen this movie a million times, so it's kind of hard to feel that the same way about it when you know basically exactly what's going to happen at every turn. So there's that. But yeah, I wanted to get your gauge on that.
The kitchen scene, though, I will say, where the Velociraptor runs into the wall or the cabinetry or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Because I was like, oh, she's over there. And, like, the scene is shot so well that you believe she's, like, on that wall. And
yeah,
like,
that's the reflection.
That's really quality.
Yeah, it's a cool scene.
That's some quality camera work. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't feel like, it's supposed to be that terrifying. People die. Sad. But then we end on just like, oh, yeah, we made it. I have no idea what happens after that. I have no idea what your plans are. There's no, like, line of, like, I'm gonna shut down the park and like, this is my action plan, and the dinosaurs will die from the Listerine
Plus
thing.
like a PowerPoint. All right.
Whatever. Like, I mean, just something, or, like, even just a little, like, here's a paragraph text. This is what went on and happened. And I get that there are subsequent films, but I would have needed something here.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not like now, I can just go watch subsequent films and get something, but...
Yeah, well, there's 2 books, right?
I don't know. I don't know how the books work on this.
The Jurassic Park and the Lost World are both books.
Okay.
And I don't know how those are tied together, or where one ends, the other begins. I'm not sure. Again, I should really read these books. I can agree that it would be cool to know what the plan is, but I think the idea is that, okay, we've made it off the island. There's a sense of relief and, like, joy that, we're not dead or in the belly of a T-Rex. Pretty nice. And I think that's a fine place to leave it. The shot where they're in, like, the main entrance of the building, and the T-Rex grabs the raptor that had jumped on his back and just throws it into, like, the stairwell with the bones and whatnot. And then the banner falls down. It says, when dinosaurs ruled the earth. That's a really cool shot, and it's a really famous shot. But I think, like, as an in for the dinosaurs, I think it's really cool Like, it's a really cool way to end it. Like, okay, well, these things are now going to have to interact with each other. And you got Mr. T-Rex over here, who's the cool kid on the block.
But the systems are all back up. So they're locked wherever they were. Like
Yeah.
when the systems went back up.
Yeah, well, I guess we wouldn't know where all the... Well, we know one of the Velociraptors is screwed because it's in the freezer, locked up. So that one's definitely dying out. And the other two Velociraptors are also dead because they were just killed. But we do see the nest of Velociraptor eggs earlier, so we know that there's probably more. I just be curious to see what the interaction between all these species are afterward.
It needed more detail. And maybe the book provides that. But we didn't read the book.
Yeah.
We watched the sad, pitiful film of Jurassic Park.
If I'm ranking films,
Mm-hmm.
this is probably about my number 5 film of all time.
This is number 5 film of all time.
4 or 5.
4 or 5. It's got some wiggle room to go up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. This film is not even anywhere close to any list. Like, it's not so bad that it could be on, like, a top worst list, but it's not so good, clearly, that it could be on a top, best films of all time or whatever, right? Maybe this is the best dinosaur film I've seen.
I mean, there's not a lot.
In the last, decade, because I haven't watched Land Before Time in a long time, and those were definitely better films.
Land Before Time.
I liked Land Before Time as a kid. I saw like 8 or 9 of them as a kid.
There's so many.
There's a lot.
Oh my god, there's so many.
Maybe we should watch that.
I don't know which ones I've seen or haven't seen. I mean, Littlefoot's the only name I remember.
There's Ducky and Spike, and I think the Triceratops is Sarah.
Oh, that does sound
I
right.
think her name is Sarah, and then there's the flying thing, and I don't remember what he is called. And Chomper is a T-Rex kid. I just want you to know.
That's pretty good.
I just named a bunch of these things, and I haven't seen them in a while.
Yeah.
And I've already forgotten some of the names from Jurassic Park.
I mean, says something that those movies left an impression. I saw some of those films. I liked them as a kid, but I barely remember them at all. I do remember that a lot of those species are dinosaurs that would never have been alive in the same period. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me, but I mean, it's a cartoon movie. It's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else we want to talk about with Jurassic Park? Because it's about Jurassic Park and not Land Before Time. Any other nonsense statements about how this is like in my top whatever? Like, I hum this weekly.
Well,
this is what I fap to. I don't know. What do you want here?
Yeah, that's my accent, yeah. I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's a movie that speaks for itself. Most people have seen it. Most people like it, like smart individuals that they are.
Like the heathens, the unrighteous. If you enjoyed this,
Tell your doctor.
definitely tell your doctor. Your primary care physician needs to know about how bad Jurassic Park is. They're probably older, so they've probably seen this film.
I'm guaranteed.
You talk to them about it. You get their opinion. You type that down in those comments. Follow, subscribe. You know what to do. It's important. Important to spread the news of how bad this film is. I'm counting on you guys to do that for me.
Yes, please do.
What are you giving this?
I would rate this film a 9.5 out of 10.
I give this a 5 out of 10.
Have at us.